All right, now that I've got you guys zoomed in, it's time for me to get started. So my step one always is primer. Sometimes I'll moisturize too, but like it's been a long day, so I'm not going to. But if you have dry skin, it's very important that you moisturize. So I'm gonna take the e.l.f. Mineral Infused Primer, and I'm just gonna put that all over my face. And I'm gonna rub that in on the cheek area, but when I get to the more porous areas, like my nose, and my pore area in total, I'm gonna do more of a patting motion to really make sure that it sinks in. Because if you're like me and you have bigger pores, you really wanna make sure that you're minimizing them, and this will help with that for sure. All right, and then I'm also gonna pat my forehead too, just because I tend to sweat on my forehead and it's gonna be a long night of sweating, so you wanna make sure that you really get your primer in, sunken in. Okay, and then once you have your base of primer on, next I'm gonna move on to foundation. Now this is the Wet n Wild Photo Focus Foundation, and this is in the shade Soft Beige, and I love this stuff. So yeah, this is $6, and it's tested under a bunch of different lighting conditions. And we all know we're gonna take pictures at homecoming, so why not have a foundation that you know's got your back with flashback? Or without. You get the gist. Now, I personally really like to apply this foundation in sections, just because it dries a little bit quick. Not super quick, but like, you don't have like a ton of playtime with it, so I really like to just do sections of my face. And I really focus the product in on my cheeks, and then I go a little bit more sparingly when I get around the other areas. And then to blend this out, I like to start with just using a round foundation brush, just because it gives more coverage. And I'm just buffing this in. You can pat if you want to, but I'm gonna do that a little bit later with the beauty sponge. And the other thing about foundation is that it really depends on your skin. I personally have combination oily skin, and this foundation works great for me. I think this foundation will also work really great on normal skin. A foundation I would recommend for dry skin is probably the Maybelline Dream Cushion, because it's very hydrating, it gives you a nice medium coverage. And then for oily skin, this one's honestly great as long as you just powder right. So yeah. And usually I would wait until I do my full face, but I just want to demonstrate for the camera. So as soon as I'm done blending out the foundation with my foundation brush on a side of my face, I like to take a damp beauty sponge. This is a $1 one from Shop Miss A that's really nice actually, because I can't afford no beauty blender. So yeah, I'm gonna take this and I'm just gonna kind of smooth everything out and make it a little bit more skin-like. But the thing about this foundation is very pretty like dewy-ish, so it's still kind of nice and with this brush. It's still very similar, but it just has the right amount of like skin texture without being overly textured. Like it just more skin-like feel. You know what I mean? All right, now that I have that finished, I'm gonna go ahead and do the rest of my face off camera to save time, and then we'll be right back. Okay, now that I have most of my base completed, I'm going to show you something a little bit extra that I do. So I just take a little bit of the, this foundation and put it on the bottom part of the sponge. If you have like a Real Technique sponge, I would just put it on like the little like divot. But yeah, I like to take it like this, and for my nose, I just like to do this because I feel it works a lot better. All right, now that I look very good and clear and base and everything, I'm going to go in with concealer. Two of my favorites are the Wet n Wild Photo Focus Concealer in shade 10, I believe, Light Ivory. And I also really like the NYX HD Concealer in the shade CW02. I'm going to use the Wet n Wild Photo Focus Concealer under my eyes, and then the NYX HD Concealer on the rest of my face for highlighting, and I'll just show you guys what I do to highlight. As you can see, I am a triangle person. I like doing the triangle under my eye. So now I'm going to blend it out with this sponge. And I would say this concealer has about medium coverage. But to do this. Oh, and I'm just showing half of the side for the camera. I'll do the other side off camera. So I'm just taking this on the forehead. And I also like to do a teeny bit of a triangle up here. I take it down the nose. I'm not gonna do half of the nose because really the point of highlighting the nose is to get it really nice and slim in the middle. So I'm gonna do that. Then I like to highlight the Cupid's bow because it adds a little bit of definition to your lips. And then a lot of people don't highlight their chin, but I do. So I'm gonna do that. Oh, and if you're cream contouring, which is something we'll get into someday, it's a lot. You can, if you're cream contouring, or even if you just want to make stuff look a lot sharper, I like to take a little bit of concealer, and I'll go to the nose, and I'll just place a line right there on the nose. I don't know if you can see that very well. It's like right, ooh, this is hard to explain. Like I take it from about the inner corner down to the middle of the nostril. And as you can see, this side of my face just looks a lot more highlighted and bright. And now I'm gonna go ahead and do that on the other side. All right, as you can see, I'm very highlighted and I'm ready to move on. Oh, and I forgot one of my favorite tips. Okay, so I'm gonna take this NYX concealer that I was using and I'm going to non-tour, which is basically where you're gonna put a line under where you would put your contour. And we'll get into that later, but I'm basically putting a line of concealer underneath that, and it'll just help to really cut, there we go, yeah. It'll just help to really cut the contour later on. All right, and as you can see, I do crease a little bit under my eyes, or maybe you can't see, I don't know. I do crease under my eyes, and I crease in my smile lines. That's just gonna happen with me. I haven't met a concealer yet that doesn't do that, so yeah, don't worry about that. And now we're going to get to the most important step for me anyway. I sweat a lot at homecoming, believe me, so my most important step is powdering. I love Coty Airspun. Can you even see that? Probably not. Okay. I love me some Coty Airspun because it's affordable. I think it's like $6 or $7. And you get like a big tub of it. There it is, just falling out everywhere. But yeah, I really love this. We're gonna be baking today. If you don't know what that is, it's basically where you lay translucent powder out to set underneath. I like to do my eyes only. Some people go around their whole face, but I don't wanna dry myself out too much. Actually, no, I'll probably do it on my forehead too. But it's basically where you lay translucent powder over those certain areas and you let it sit there for a minute so that way it can really react with your body heat and kind of melt the product into your skin a little bit more. It sounds horrible, but it's actually really great for keeping your makeup on for longer. And before you set your skin, you're gonna wanna take your sponge and get any creases out that you have. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my sponge and I'm gonna take this side and I'm just gonna grab a hefty amount of powder on it. See that? Yeah. And then I'm just gonna place that right in there. And I'm really gonna press it in. And then I'm also gonna take more powder and I'm going to come in the opposite way. I find that this really fills in the creases just to make sure that you don't crease as much. One thing to be very wary of when using this powder is even though it's colored, like it's kind of like a salmony, like whitish color, it will flash back if you put way too much on. It's happened to me before. A tragic day. But yeah, make sure that you aren't putting a ton on. If you are putting a ton on, just make sure that you take a powder brush with a foundation powder of your shade and just kind of like buff that in afterwards and kind of like knock the powder off at the same time. Just so that way you don't look very like ghostly in pictures and stuff. So yeah, I would just really recommend that. And I'm gonna take the sponge again and I'm gonna just put that on the center of the forehead. Go. Yeah, and then once you're, oh, I'm also gonna powder my smile lines, just because they really love to happen. So I'm gonna finish powdering those. And now I'm gonna take a big powder brush and a little bit that's in the lid, there's just a little bit of excess. I'm gonna take that, make sure to dust it off. I really don't want a lot of this for this. And I'm just taking this big powder brush, I probably just said that. And I'm going to just kind of barely, just bounce it around everywhere a little. And then you're gonna wanna let that powder set under your eyes for just a little bit longer, and then you should be good to go. Okay, now I'm taking some yellow powder on a brush. I'm taking a little one, but you could use a big one too. And I'm just gonna dust off that bake with a little bit of this yellow powder. You can also use foundation powder. I just really like the highlighting look of this. And now I'm going to start off. Okay, so this is the e.l.f. Prime and Stay Finishing Powder in medium dark. And I found this at the Dollar Tree. And this is such a good bronzer for me. Is the light gonna focus? Whatever, yeah. This is such a good bronzer for me because it's just warm enough. Let me see if we can get a good swatch. You'll see it on the face. It's just warm enough for me and it really gives me that bronzed look that I want. I use this a lot in the summer, but yeah, I'm just gonna use a little bit of this for today because my main focus with this part is trying to contour, which we'll do in a minute. So yeah, I'm really focusing on just getting a nice little bit to give me a little bit of warmth, but not going overboard yet. Nope, there we go. As you can see, when I put that concealer there, it kind of just like set up a little like stopping point for the contour, so it's gonna look very nice and chiseled. Or I mean the bronzer for now, but like, it just makes a nice little stopping point for it. All right, and then I'm going to take a little bit more, and I'm gonna take that under the chin, not on the chin. Personally, I feel like the chin is something that's a little bit different for more feminine and more masculine face structures. Obviously, contour how you want. I'm not gonna stop you, but yeah. So now I'm gonna take my e.l.f. contour palette and I'm going to dip into both of the brown shades down here, just very slightly, just kind of like rubbing this. And I'm using a big fan brush to contour because I really like the sharp chiseled look it has with also being blended out. And I'm gonna take that right along this little line here. You should go from the top of your ear to like this part of your lip. But don't just go straight on. And also don't come this far in. I like to go about mid-eye, no, like the end of the eye. And I'm also going to go back to this brush, the little tiny one that I put the yellow powder on with. And I'm gonna dip into the lighter of the two shades in this, knock it off, and I'm going to just go straight down the sides of my nose. I'm gonna take my sponge again with a little bit of powder, and I'm gonna bake the sides of the nose. This is an advanced thing, I would say. You don't have to do this at all. I just think it makes it look really nice. And obviously you can bake like this contour too with that, but I feel like mine is already really defined. Actually, I'm gonna take my powder brush and I'm gonna just very easily just kind of take it over the contour just to make sure that everything's super blended and such, and make sure nothing's too harsh. And I contoured a little bit low because I have a more masculine face, but if you want to make your cheekbones appear even higher, you can always contour right at the cheek, or like right underneath the cheekbone, or like right at the cheekbone, but I personally like to take mine a little bit lower. Happy with this contour. I feel like the nose is a little bit sharp, but we'll fix that in a minute. Okay, so now I'm going to go on to blush. I'm gonna be using the e.l.f. blush palette. I love these palettes. They're $6 and they always come with really nice blushes. There are only 3 in here because I took the 4th one out for my theater makeup kit. But yeah, I love these blushes, and I also really love everything that comes in this contour kit. So I highly recommend these palettes. And also you can pop out these pans and put them in different palettes. It's really, really nice. So I'm gonna take a mix of this brownie blush. They probably won't be in the same places because I moved them around, but the more brownish blush, I'm gonna mix that one with the more pinky red blush. And I'm as it's on the apples and as it's starting to build up, I like to just take it a little bit further back each time. Now I'm not going all the way back, I'm just really focusing on getting it right here on those areas. And I'm going for more of a flesh look and less of like a more like popped blush. I'm just looking for more of like a, oh, he's living, he has flesh. I also, just to add a little bit of more lifelike feature, I would take that same blush combo and just barely pat it right on the bridge of the nose. And now comes my favorite part. My absolute favorite part. If you know me, you know this is my favorite part. You're probably screaming it right now. This is my absolute favorite part of any makeup routine ever. And that is highlighter. Now, if you know me and you've ever asked me what highlighter I'm wearing, 99.9% of the time, it is Wet n Wild Precious Petals. I love it so much. It's just the right amount of golden for my skin tone. So I'm taking my Morphe Y14 brush. I love this brush. And I'm just gonna tap into the highlighter a few times. You really don't need a ton with this. And then I like to just do one tap. Oh, that was a lot for me. Yeah, just one tap, just to make sure that I'm not getting like a ton of excess on it. And I like to take it and just run it across that cheek area. Let me get a mirror. Who am I kidding? I'm just gonna take this, and I like to start with a nice like light layer because I can always build up from there. Just drag it a little bit along this part. I don't even know what you would call that. Just right here, right behind the brow tail. Like just take it there a little bit, and then I also like to just barely tap it right in here. Just so that way you kind of see it when you look at me straight on. And then as I turn my head, you kind of really see it. So yeah. And I'm gonna go ahead and do the other side. Okay, now that I have the cheeks done, I like to take the same brush and just swivel it right around the nose. Is it gonna show up? Yeah. And I add more product personally because I really like a nice blinding nose highlight. But you don't have to. If you just want something subtle, you can totally just use the product remaining. But yeah, I like that. And then I like to just drag it up a little bit towards the tip. And then I like to put it more towards the top of the bridge. And then I like to take my sponge. This part is so essential to making it look like a Your Skin, but way better look. I like to take this and I just tap the highlight right in. And I'm just gonna do oh, I'm almost out too. I'm gonna do one spray on each side of the brush. And this should work for both sides of my face if I just use one side in the pan each time. And I'm just gonna tap this a few times, maybe wiggle it a little, you know. And then one tap of the excess. I'm just gonna take this, and yeah, there we really go. That's what really brings it out.